Hi, my name is Alusine Barrie. Welcome to episode 2 of the Teacher Education Program for Africa. Today we turn our attention to Bloom's Taxonomy. This is related to the cognitive domain of learning, which is one of the three domains of learning that we assess in teaching. The three domains of learning are cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. We'll deal with this in a different video. But before we move in further into this episode, the quote for the episode for today is, if you have to put someone on a pedestal, put teachers. They are society's heroes, by Guy Kawasaki. Today we are going to focus on Bloom's taxonomy. Like I said, it is a taxonomy focused on the cognitive domain of learning. What we'll be doing today, in fact, let me just start off by explaining to you the outcomes of this lesson, because we have to practice what we teach. By the end of this episode, this set of episodes, because we'll be doing it over 3 or 4 episodes, teachers or an educator will be able to recall the 6 stages of the Bloom's taxonomy. You'll be able to distinguish between the different stages and give examples of them. You'll also be able to demonstrate an appreciation of Bloom's taxonomy and how it might help you as an educator in designing learning outcomes and assessing learning. You will also be able to apply your learning of Bloom's taxonomy in designing a lesson plan. Okay, so these are the outcomes for this session, this episode on Bloom's taxonomy. As we go through the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy, you'll be seeing how these sort of examples will be useful for you while you design your own learning outcomes. Before we go, just realize that and when we train teachers on using Bloom's taxonomy, some of the key things that come out are, many people say, oh, these are not useful for teaching children in the lower classes. This is a joke. All children are capable of all levels of thinking. It is the aim of the teacher, of good teaching, to develop these levels of thinking. When we are children, you see even young people go into like bins, choosing different trash cans and designing different things from them. Like we used to design cars out of milk tins, all of these things. This involves a lot of different levels of thinking. You have to choose which trash cans to use, which batteries will provide the best wheels for your car, how to do all the sounds. All of these require high levels of thinking. Okay, so do not mistake it. Children are capable of high levels of thinking. The other myth that I often hear teachers say about using Bloom's taxonomy is that it is not useful for the sciences. This is, of course, very crazy, and that's why I brought up examples of past questions and answers on different subjects, especially chemistry, mathematics, and we try to classify the different levels of thinking. Okay, so you can see here, these are June 2010 WASC past questions. You can see different chemistry questions, and we'll be trying to analyze them. Okay, so now we'll try first of all and look at the importance of Bloom's taxonomy for you as a teacher. Okay, well, for you as a teacher, the Bloom's taxonomy will help you to be able to plan and deliver appropriate instruction. Okay, so you'll be able to know, and in fact, I advise you as a teacher to use this Bloom's taxonomy in conjunction with these 4 levels of cognitive development by Piaget. Okay, there is a theory of learning, 4 levels of cognitive development by Jean Piaget. Okay, so look at that because you have to make sure the learning outcomes you choose are appropriate for the age of the children. Okay, as children go through different ages, they definitely show different levels of cognitive development, which teachers should be able to take into consideration while designing learning outcomes. Also, it will be able to help you to design valid assessments. Okay, so after designing, you put together your learning outcomes, you should also be able to design valid assessments based on those outcomes. And finally, it will help you to ensure that your instruction, the way you teach in the class, and how you assess are aligned with the objectives that you've chosen. Okay, so it's very important for you as a teacher. It's also extremely important for you as a school leader, in that it will help you to be able to design learning programs. Okay, say you have you want to design an extra class for children who are sitting the beke or the WASC, or it's summer school program you want to design for your school at the end of the school term, the school year. Okay, so using Bloom's taxonomy will be able to help you to design learning programs. Okay, or say you have children who are struggling in your school, you want to help them to develop. Bloom's taxonomy is a very helpful tool, a framework to help you do that. And then also as a school leader, the Bloom's taxonomy will also help you to be able to assess lesson plans and learning programs that your teachers will design. Okay, so Bloom's taxonomy is extremely important. Now let's look at the details of Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom's taxonomy is a classification of thinking, of levels of thinking. Okay, so you consider it starting from simple thinking to more complex or demanding or more difficult levels of thinking. Right? At the bottom of the taxonomy, a taxonomy simply means a classification. At the bottom we have remembering. Right? So this is the simplest cognitive task. Okay, and then at the top we have creating, which is the highest cognitive function. Okay, so in learning we measure cognition, thinking capacity, we measure affective, social, emotional, and feelings of the learners, and psychomotive, the physical and kinesthetic, it's basically skills focused area of learning. So remembering, okay, so this simply means the ability to recognize and recall facts that they have learned. Okay, so if you teach a child, you give them a definition of something and they can recall that definition, then they have achieved this level of thinking. It's very simple. Okay, um, but remembering can be divided into different aspects as well. Okay, you have recognition or recall of facts, so factual knowledge. Okay, you have conceptual knowledge, concepts. They know a particular concept, say a concept of say the part of speech. Children can remember that concept and be able to give examples of that concept. Okay, they can remember procedural knowledge, what steps you take to be able to carry out a particular experiment in integrated science. All right, so there are different aspects of knowledge, of remembering. The second stage, once children have been able to remember or recall facts, the more complex stage is for them to be able to understand those facts, what those facts mean. Right? So this is characterized by children being able to give examples, being able to summarize something, or even if you just give them like small part of learning or some information, they are able to infer or draw conclusions from this. Okay, but this level of thinking is more complex than just simple recall, which is the first stage. Right? And then the third stage in the Bloom's taxonomy is being able to apply their understanding to a different situation. So say now you've taught children about say the third law of Newton's laws of motion, okay, and then now you give them a problem for them to be able to apply Newton's third law of motion to solve this problem. Right? So many subjects that in fact people find difficult in schools, mostly teachers often focus on being able to apply what they've taught children. Okay, so these are subjects often like say chemistry, physics, mathematics. The reason also why students try to avoid them, because they demand higher levels of cognition. The next stage, which is actually more complex, is breaking down information into its different aspects. You have a different story, say maybe the war in Sierra Leone. You have causes, you have effects, you have different parties who participated in this. Right? So children being able to differentiate the different elements of a story, break it down. Okay, so things we often see in this are like certain terms when teachers design learning outcomes are distinguish. Remember, I put this in my own learning outcomes for this episode, being able to distinguish between the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. And then the next stage is being able to evaluate, which is judging the value of information or ideas. So here, it's mostly characterized by making a decision or backing it up with reasoning.